Good morning, Daniel Moylan.
Anthony, good morning.
You're the Chief Advisor on Aviation for the London Mayor. Now, the Davies Commission is really examining the hub options for airport expansion in London. Big decision coming. I suppose the question is, it's critical to London, but do you think that the Davies Commission will actually get us to the situation where we are pressing forward with new airport capacity?
Well, I think the Davies Commission is primarily a contrivance by the government to try and postpone any debate about this until after the election. And the main political parties, not just the government, have done that. Boris has always said we should make a decision earlier and get on with it, and I think he's right about that. But I do think it's the case that Davies, and indeed the arguments Boris has been making for the last 6-7 years, mean that it is much more difficult now for a government to say we're not going to do anything than it would have been before. I think there's a much broader recognition, not just business, the population at large, that there is genuinely a problem and that some steps have to be taken. So I think the do-nothing option is not as easily available to governments, the next government, as it might have been earlier.
We've got three options, of course, on the shortlist, plus the estuary option, which is still being considered. You and the Mayor is very much wedded to promoting the estuary option. I mean, do you think, firstly, that will make the shortlist in September?
Well, I don't know what's going on inside the minds of the commissioners, but it's perfectly clear that if the Commission is to carry any credibility, it has to include that option, because there are two approaches open to the Commission. One is to say which is the cheapest place to stick 3 kilometres of tarmac, and that's one approach. The other approach is to say how is London going to develop over the future with its additional population, and what role does an airport have in that? And this discussion today, being announced over our heads, is indeed about land use planning and about the shape of the city in the future. And if you stand back for a moment and think about those issues, and there's at least one commissioner, Professor Burdett, who actually does that for a living. If you stand back and you think about those issues, then you see that the airport, where you put an airport, is a very important consideration in how you drive the shape and development of the city for homes and jobs. How do you get the maximum out of this? And that's what the estuary airport offers.
So assuming that there's a big decisions coming, what happens? What happens if it doesn't make the shortlist? What do you see as the next best option?
Well, I don't think it matters if it doesn't make the shortlist, because an estuary option has been on the table amongst all options considered since at least 1970. Every time somebody has looked at this issue, the estuary option comes back, and there's a good reason for that. The first is it's the right answer, and the second is that expansion at Heathrow and Gatwick are impossible. So if Davies makes himself irrelevant, really, by focusing on two undeliverable options at Heathrow and Gatwick, people will get forced back to an estuary, or at least an east of London solution, which might be Stansted, but they'll be forced back in that direction by the sheer necessity of doing something and the undeliverability of the other options.
Right. You're speaking at Runways today. The last time the Runways UK group came together, we heard that it's probably unlikely that a decision to go ahead with a new runway would be before 2020. Do you agree with that? Do you think that that's the right sort of timescale?
No. We should be making a decision now. We should be getting on with it.
Right.
We could have made this decision in the last 12 months. It'd be ideal if we made it in the next 12 months. It's absolutely imperative that we make it in the 12 months after that. Absolutely imperative. And I think everybody here today would say that.
Daniel, I'll let you go and make your presentation at the event today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony.